Okay, my friends, here it is. The video that is going to explain to you why I am tearing out my entire garden and starting over. Yes, in the last video, I told you the reasoning behind it, but you guys want to see a garden tour and to illustrate what I'm saying. And so I'm going to take you out and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, because in the last video, I said it was primarily due to the lack of rain, and it is, but there's also several other factors which you will see. So let us just get right into it. I'm going to take you out into the garden and show you the thought process about why I'm going to tear this whole place down all the way to the soil and start fresh. So keep in mind, what things do you want to see about this rebuild? What kind of things do you want to see about the process? And let me know in the comments if you think I should tear it out immediately or if I should wait until the fall harvest of crops is done. There's pros and cons to both. It'll still be nice and warm. I can still have some time, maybe plant some cover crops. Or if I wait until the end, I'll get the produce. So let me know what you think after checking out the video. Okay, my friends, here we are, the first week of September, and you can see that the sun, yes, the almighty blazing sun, not a cloud in the sky, it is actually creeping behind the house at this point, so the days for this basil are numbered. You see, we've had our fourth cutting of this basil, but these pots require watering every day, guys. If you're not on the summer savory train, you need to be, and also the holy basil train. Holy basil, super delicious, totally different than any other kind of basil, but again, this setup requires watering every day. So do these carrots. I mean, they're doing good enough. Even in the heat, the carrots are still producing. I'm still stir frying carrots, but they need some water every day, every other day. And this is not what we're going to be doing in the future. And you see here, this makeshift container from a pallet is 3, maybe 4 years old now. So it needs to be remodeled. And you will see a common theme throughout the garden, guys. And the Velvet Queen sunflower and the Evening Sunset mix, one of my favorite, or both of my favorite sunflowers, guys, doing really good. So here we come over to the fabric grow pot garden area, and guys, fabric grow pots need watered every day in this blazing sun with dry wind and no rain. If you don't water them pretty much every day, they will die. And so the parsley's doing good, the ginger's doing good, yes, but in the future garden, we're not going to have it set up to where we have to be out here watering every day. But see here, now we don't water. The rest of the crops, we pretty much don't water because it's just not possible with this current setup. So we see our collard greens, how they are just struggling. They're not loving life like they normally do. They're not sick. There's no nutrient deficiencies. Look how healthy. I mean, they're still healthy. There's been no water for like 2 months. They haven't had any rain. And so they're just sitting here barely surviving, barely producing anything. Just like these peppers. These peppers, we're about to roast them, smoke them, dehydrate them, and grind them into powder. That will be chipotle. Yes, that's what chipotle seasoning is. Red jalapenos. Guys, these Hungarian paprikas turned out to be way too spicy for me. So even though they're growing well, I'm not going to grow them again. But the shishito pepper here turned out really nice, even though it's had no rain for 2 months, guys. This has been a super dry year. I'm done relying on the rain for these things, okay? So the Jimmy Nardello peppers were some of the sweetest peppers that I've had, though, as opposed to these Lesia peppers, which are supposed to be the sweetest ones that there is, but that's not been my experience. So look, just the eggplants, all the plants are just barely able to survive because they haven't had any water. So here we go on the left. There's no mulch. On the right, there's mulch. And both these were planted the same day. Look at the difference between the health of the mulch and the unmulched. So here is some purple lady, bok choy. We're going to be eating all this stuff from the fall garden. Yes, it's still doing okay. It's just growing so slow and it's just not thriving, okay? So by my standards, it's just not thriving, and I know this. So the whole thing needs a revamp, all right? These onions are just dehydrated. And another thing that I need to fix, you see here, these have been dug up. So neighborhood cats come in here and dig stuff up. With the new setup, that's not going to be an issue. We're going to do things to make that a non-issue. Here's the fall planting of beets. They're surviving, yes, but I'm watering them every day, of course. Now here is the fall Chinese cabbages. This is the late Nagasaki cabbage. Still doing good, you know, with the landscaping fabric helping to eliminate some of the evaporation, but they're just struggling, and I'm having to water them every couple days. And this is not what we want to be doing. Even with the landscaping fabric and stuff, I mean, they're still doing good. They're still going to be tasty. They're just growing so slow. And then we come over here to the fall cabbages. This is for sauerkraut and all kinds of stuff. Here is the New Brunswick cabbage. And they're doing good. I mean, enough, you know, they're surviving. They're not being ravaged by pests. There's no nutrient deficiencies. They're just struggling because of how dry everything is. And this setup is not set up to be watering by hand. It just kind of doesn't absorb properly. And so they just get roasted out. And this is not going to be the way of the future here. So here we are with the Brussels sprouts. Now the Brussels sprouts, it's a little bit easier to water these, and so they're doing nice and good. You see these tiny little Brussels sprouts are already starting to form on them, but next year's garden, this is going to be totally transformed. Okay. Now another thing I want you guys to see is how everything is kind of hodgepodge shape. You see these Brussels sprouts are still healthy. They're just like creeping along. Now, this is another thing we're going to fix next year. All these different shapes of the beds and whatnot, this is all going to be fixed in the new layout. So here we are at the tomatoes. A lot of you guys have asked about the tomatoes. Now, you see the new growth is still healthy on these. The plants themselves are still relatively healthy. There's no disease on the new growth. It's just that they are dropping the leaves that they don't need anymore. So any leaves that they don't need, they drop, and listen. That's how dry everything is. I have not watered these tomatoes in 2 months, guys. Yes, they've got like 7 inches of good mulch on them. So they've got mulch all the way around them. That's the only reason they're still alive. I haven't watered these things in like 2 months. I'm serious. And so some of the straw is still somewhat, almost moist, but it's still even bone dry. See, mulches and all that works up to a point, but everything has just been so dry. And here's another reason I'm redoing everything is because the wood, the natural logs that I put down 4 or 5 years ago, they're all starting to decay and decompose, and so they need revamped. But look at this. This is Indiana clay soil. Listen. This is how rock hard all of it is, guys. It is super rock hard, so it doesn't even matter if you've got mulches and stuff like that. Now here is the melons, guys, which has not seen water their whole life almost. 8 weeks. They've just had a couple little, they're totally died. Now we did still get some produce. This is the Maduras melons, but instead of getting 50 of them like we normally would, we got about 10 of them. And part of that is because the manure that I brought into these beds last year has been contaminated, and I know this. And so here, look at the cucumbers, guys. You can't go 8 weeks without having water for your cucumbers. And the manures were contaminated in this area. So I will explain in a future video why I'm done with manures. Even the peas, guys, you see the peas started growing, but then now the weeds have taken over, and they're the only things growing because there's no moisture, and it's just blazing full sun, hot every day. So you can see a theme throughout this place. Now here's the sweet potatoes. Fortunately, I have been watering these by hand because I gotta have sweet potatoes. So they're doing great. But again, these peppers, you see, they're healthy. The plants are quite healthy. There's no disease. There's no nutrient deficiency. They're just not in a good setup to thrive because the water, even if you water them, it just goes out into the surrounding soil. So we're going to do the raised beds with the mulch and the drip lines. You will see next year. So the whole layout of this thing needs to change. And that's what we got to do. You see how it's just kind of a hodgepodge of 5 years of different kind of organic natural methods. And so we get things like this. Look at this back here, guys. This was a thriving, beautiful honey nut squash plant. And there's still a bunch of honey nut squash, yes. And we're going to have a bunch of squash, but this plant, no, it has not been attacked by the vine borer, nothing like that. It is just desiccating. It's just dehydrating because it's so dry and everything. So it's dropping all of its leaves, and it's unable to thrive. Look at the sunflowers. Look at the grass behind that, the scorched brown grass. We used to never get that in Indiana. Now we get it every summer. And so you can see here that the whole garden just needs a revamp. So we're going to rearrange beds. We're going to add drip lines, and this setup with just random beds here and there is not ideal for the drip lines. Okay, and so those are big reasons that we're going to redo things. So we're still pulling all kinds of produce out of the garden. Absolutely, it's not a fail, not even close, but we're done relying on the rain. We're done relying on manures. So we're gonna have a total rehaul. Look at my neighbor's garden. So there you go, my friends, and as you can see, it definitely does have to do with the lack of rainfall. It also has to do with many other factors. Primarily, it's just time for a facelift. It's just time to redo the thing, the whole thing. Because when I first started like that, I had no money to invest at all. And so now that we do, there's actually better ways to do this thing, okay? So with the raised beds, with the drip lines, you're gonna see the whole thing. Make sure you let me know in the comments what part of all of this you want to see. And should I rip it out now or wait until after the fall harvest? Let me know what you think. So there are still spots available to get the what are formerly known as Egyptian walking onions, now known as Valhalla rowing onions. So if you want your own, then you can make the $40 payment to either PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App. Links are in the description. And then give me your address. Make sure you put your address in the note of that payment, and I will ship them out to you. I'll direct you to this video here to learn more about the Valhalla rowing onion.